Esports Integrity Week presented by MasterCard, day 3. We run until Friday. Each day has a theme. We're focusing, very broadly speaking, on sports betting and esports. And our next panel is called Esports the Future. We'll be over to them in just a moment. To reiterate, though, once again, the hashtag on social media is SIW. And in addition, we've got regular fundraising taking place throughout the week. If you can spare a donation to SIGA, a non-profit organization, that would be greatly appreciated. We do know that times are tough, of course, during this COVID-19 era. A QR code will flash up repeatedly, hopefully over the majority of my face and regularly. But if you're not as tech savvy to match your phone with the QR code, you can go to the social handles as well. And we're regularly posting the URL. You land on the Eventbrite page, you make your donation, but you can also partake in a poll, and that will help determine how the money is distributed. So essentially what we do is we list the different options we're looking to invest in, ranging from conferences like this to a SIGA Youth Council and specific research on things like racism and match fixing. And then, depending on how you vote, that will factor in to how the money is allocated. So please do donate if you can, and hopefully we'll get more conferences like this taking place both digitally and in person. So once again, a very good afternoon to you, and using SIW as well, have some fun with us as well. Post a picture of you watching a panel and tell us whereabouts in the world you're watching from. If you're there with the dog, if you've got a smart shirt on and pajama bottoms on underneath, then have a bit of a laugh with us as well. That hashtag again is SIW. So we move on to our 2 o'clock GMT, 3 o'clock CET panel. It's entitled Esports, the Future Now! Exclamation mark. Over the last few years, the esports industry has expanded rapidly. It's not really an emerging market anymore. Instead, you'd call it a fully fledged global sporting industry that promises to continue to expand significantly again over the coming years. And such rapid growth inevitably also brings that necessity to safeguard and protect the industry from threats to integrity and standing. And on the betting front as well, esports has had a higher platform than normal because sport itself hasn't taken place. So as a consequence, more people are watching esports and virtual sports and betting on esports as well during this COVID-19 period. And that in turn presents questions as well about integrity specifically related to betting. So this session will explore some of these themes as well as the opportunities, challenges and developments of the esports ecosystem as it prepares for the next wave of global emergence. Our moderator for this panel is John Kozner. He is the president of Kozner Media. John, a very good afternoon. It's over to you to introduce the topic and also your panelists.
Hey, thank you, Ben. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe and later all around the world. And good morning for the United States. I'm John Kozner. I'm a veteran of traditional sports media in the US, having run ESPN digital media for 15 years before becoming an investor, advisor, and consultant to sports tech startups here in New York City. I was responsible for the launch of esports coverage at ESPN with an own dedicated section in January 2016. As Ben said, esports is growing and everything about it is young. Its history, its players, its traditions, and most of its leadership. With great growth comes significant growing pains, and esports increasingly has to deal with issues such as cheating, sexism, drug abuse. To tell you more this morning or this afternoon, we have assembled an august panel. We have Ian Smith, Commissioner of the Esports Integrity Commission, the ESIC, a SIGA member. We have Brian Lancey, Vice President, Global Communication, Global Consumer Marketing Sponsorships from MasterCard, also a SIGA member. We have Vlad Marinescu, the President of the International Esports Federation, and we have Chris Mann, Vice President of Partnerships from Dignitas. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Dignitas.
Dignitas.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's a tough one sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I'm tripping over it. To start, each of our speakers is going to have up to 3 minutes to tell you more about what they do and how issues of integrity intersect with their responsibilities and interest in esports. After that, we'll have a discussion among the group, and then provide you, the audience, with an opportunity for Q&A. So we're going to get started with Ian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Some of you will have seen me earlier today. I'm Ian Smith, the Commissioner of the Esports Integrity Commission. The Commission itself was launched formally in July of 2016. We were founded in 2015 in direct response to an integrity threat assessment that I carried out on behalf of parts of the esports industry at a time when there was no particular central authority or place to go with that sort of information. And what we do, we're a voluntary members association, a voluntary regulator, where members, different companies involved in the esports industry, on the tournament organizer, publisher, developer, and sponsor and betting operator side, can join and sign up to a regulatory system dealing in effect with cheating, with integrity matters. And that covers 4 distinct areas of cheating. 3 of those revolve around cheating to win. So that's using software, what are called in the esports industry wall hacks, aimbots, but basically alien software that gives you an advantage in the game. DDoS attacks, which is denial of service attacks, which basically are aimed at slowing down your opponent during online competition by spamming them or other methods. Doping, where we run a esports-specific anti-doping program and code, and where we test at major LAN events on behalf of some of our members at the high end of tournament organizer for multi-million-dollar tournaments. And then the other side, the 4th threat to the integrity of esports, being match fixing, betting integrity, where the ESIC anti-corruption code applies to our members and allows us to investigate, prosecute, and sanction violations of the code, and those sanctions apply across our whole membership. So that is the primary role of ESIC. We do a number of other things, but we're lucky enough to be well embedded in the international esport at the high end of the professional esports scene, with most of the big tournament organizers and publishers, although I would say we still have a long way to go to get everybody involved, which is ultimately our purpose.
Great. Thank you, Ian. Brian.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? I'm Brian Lancey. I am the Vice President of Consumer Marketing and Global Sponsorships at MasterCard. For the past 5 years, I've led MasterCard's involvement in esports from a global strategic standpoint that has now reaches over 20 countries all over the world. Sports integrity as a sponsor is so important, so critical as we continue to build our investments, our portfolio in esports and gaming, and then taking those to consumers and our customers. It's really important that we know that the leagues, the teams, the players continue to abide at the highest rules and regulations, especially during a time where a property such as esports is continuing to truly grow, find its legs, trying to be an authentic leagues, no different than everything we see across all sports. So as a sponsor, it's upon us to work with our key partners, our leagues, to continue to push and ensure that they are abiding by the highest levels of integrity across everything they do.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Vlad.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to take part in this panel, to greet everybody who's watching. We are definitely facing a difficult time, and to have these discussions and take a moment out of our daily routine to pay attention to topics that are actually vitally important, I think makes a lot of sense. The International Esports Federation was founded in 2008 and currently consists of more than 75 member national federations. We organize a world championship every single year for about 12 editions. And we do also the Global Esports Executive Summit. Besides these main activities, we're highly involved and dedicated to the education of the youth. I believe that it's vitally important for the youth who are playing games, gamers, to learn principles, including also physical competencies, socialization, vitally important integrity, anti-doping, and other aspects of life like nutrition and daily routines in order to be responsible gamers to play esports. And I think that through our partners, we work also with Ian and with other stakeholders on the market. We are ready and happy to collaborate with everybody to deliver to the youth educational principles that they can grow up to have the foundations that solidify their future, built with values and morals, with integrity.
Thanks, Vlad. And now Chris Mann from Dignitas.
Hey, John, thank you. I'm really excited to be here with everyone today in this great panel. Some that I know and some that I'm excited to meet and share some of the things that Dignitas and myself have been doing. Dignitas has been around since 2003. It's one of the top teams in esports, as many of you know, with a long heritage and winning world championships and playing in the top games. For me, I've been in the esports industry for about 5 years, led T-Mobile's entry when I was with Endeavor, WME-IMG, and now at Dignitas, I've worked with brands like Verizon and others to get them into esports and as they become partners with Dignitas. And one of the things that, that Dignitas has done since the time I've been here over the last year is really taken a stand in terms of holding our players and our content creators to the highest level of integrity. We have a no-nonsense policy when it comes to things like cheating and how we hold ourselves. We essentially, what is the Dignitas way? Ways that we've approached that, we've essentially started our own diversity and inclusion council that has done things like release the first LGBTQ plus opportunity to customize your jersey, or also _FEE has launched our women's initiative that it will be hosting town halls and educational resources and dedicated websites and Discord communities to empower and inspire the next generation of women in gaming. And most importantly for this call probably is working with Ian and his team at ESIC to navigate our naming rights partnership with Vi, which is a betting site for our world-class CSGO team. And so we reached out quickly to Ian and wanted to be proactive in understanding how do we navigate, how do we work with Vi to ensure that not only is our partner getting the best value for their partnership, but also we're playing within the rules and not having any conflicts of interest. And those are just some of the things that we've done over the last year that I've been here, and excited to share more over this panel.
Great. So thank you all. It's a terrific panel. It was almost like the panel was being programmed because over the weekend there was a big piece in Forbes all about a cheating scandal in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, CSGO. Ian, the Esports Integrity Commission has opened an inquiry. Can you tell us what's going on? I think you mentioned to me it's taken up a lot of your time right now. Just give the audience the background, not only on what the scandal is, but how you guys found out about it, what you're doing about it, what you think is likely to come out of this.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's been a very, very interesting week. A few weeks ago, or about 2 months ago, it was discovered that there was a bug in the CSGO code that initially is triggered accidentally. And what it does is it gives the coach of a team. So just for context, there are 5 players, coach guiding them during and between matches. The coach has access to the server and is watching elements of the game in a perfectly normal way that has happened for many, many years. But this weird bug, which is a spectator bug, or sometimes inadvertently puts the coach somewhere in the game as if he is a camera and can see what's going on in that part of the map that it happens to manifest. Now, that can happen accidentally or arbitrarily, and the coach will just find himself there. But very quickly, it emerged that you could trigger this bug where you wanted it to be. And so we found out that since this bug's been available since 2016, 3 coaches were caught over a period of time in 2 of our member tournament organizer events in ESL and DreamHack. And coaches have used this bug deliberately to cheat because it allows you to see what's going on in parts of the map and the game that you should not be able to see in real time, so that you can help your team know what the other team is doing. Very effective way of cheating. And so this exploded last Monday night. ESL and DreamHack banned for various lengths of time 3 coaches. But as soon as we started looking into this, we realized that it would involve a lot more than 3 coaches. Because in the period during which the bug has been available, there have been 25,000 CSGO matches at professional level. And so we did a deal with HLTV to gain access to all of those demos of the matches, of the 25,000 matches. And we hired the original admins who discovered how to find out who'd been abusing the bug. And we started an inquiry, which has now revealed, I can tell you, and we're literally only a week in, we know that at least 25 coaches have cheated to various degrees. I have had about 11 confessions through because we opened a confession period that runs until Friday this week to allow coaches to voluntarily come forward and confess to abuse of the bug. It's definitely going to get bigger. We estimate that about 25% of the matches that we've had to review in this process will have some form of abuse of the bug in it. And so the big question for ESIC now is, what do we do about this? Because the scale is obviously fairly big, and if you wanted an analogy, it would be like looking at, say, the 4 football leagues in English professional football, so the Premier League, the Championship, League 1 and League 2, and potentially taking, of those 90 odd teams, taking 30 or 40 of the head coaches out of that system overnight. So we're not going to do that lightly. We've got a lot of work to do to determine what the scale and what the correct and appropriate response to that is, but it is a major scandal. The full implications of it won't be known for some time, because you can imagine how much time it's going to take to properly review all of these matches and determine how badly and for how often the bug was abused. So yeah, we've opened Pandora's box, and we're waiting for chaos.
So many of us thought that gaming and esports would be a beneficiary of COVID-19, the pandemic, people spending more time at home, more time on screens. Ian, is this an example of how it's even harder to police the sport because of pandemic conditions, or might something like this have happened anyhow?
It was definitely happening anyhow. You've got to consider that the vast majority of CSGO, and indeed all other major esports titles, particularly the big games, League of Legends and Dota 2, have been largely taking place online for as long as esports has been around. And it is really only the very top end of LAN competitions where things are live and contained in a studio. The rest of the time it is online. And so we have already isolated abuse of this bug going back to 2017. So yes, it's definitely come to the fore during the pandemic because everything is online, but before pandemic. And obviously you wouldn't have been able to get away with abuse of the bug during a LAN competition. So we're discovering something that is bad, but I wouldn't want it to detract from the overall attractiveness of esport. You know, we kick off something like this with a major scandal that happens to coincide with SIGA Sport Integrity Week. It's very unfortunate, but we should bear in mind that the upgrade, the professionalism, the growth, and particularly the integrity of esports as a broad proposition has actually dramatically improved over the last 5 years. Things are getting much, much better. And that's not just because ESIC has been around, but it's because all organizations, including the big sponsors like MasterCard and the non-endemics who have come into the industry, are insisting on professionalization and improvement. And the work that Vlad and the national federations are doing is improving education so that there's a generation of players who come into the professional level with a far better understanding of these issues and ownership of these issues than occurred historically, where somebody would go from being an amateur good gamer to being a professional gamer with zero idea of what it meant to be a professional athlete in this environment. Those things have all improved, and the teams, particularly at Tier 1 with teams like Dignitas, multi-game organizations with good staff, are embedding principles in their players over the last number of years that perhaps nobody had thought to do in the earlier history of esports. So I do want to say that, you know, the scene is improving. You just happen to have caught us at one of those awful moments where something terrible has come to light. We will deal with it. We're getting tremendous support from the CS community for what we're doing, and we'll get rid of it and we'll improve.
So, Chris, Dignitas fields a CSGO squad. What is the impact for the organization when a scandal like this develops? What goes on internally?
I think, in terms of, I'm obviously not around involved in the player ops side, so can't comment on it too much. And that's something that's relatively happened over a holiday weekend here in the States. But I would say, from our perspective, I think from my perspective, it's always serious. It's something that, we hold our players to the highest integrity, whether that's being proactive and working with Ian's team on a betting sponsor and making sure there's no conflict of interest there, and how we approach that to, the highest of things in terms of integrity and when it comes to cheating, and we'll, pending investigations, we'll see how things go, and see how we handle that. But I know that, our CEO has a no nonsense policy amongst these things. And that's something that we really ingrain in our players when we're identifying players to come to Dignitas, and then when they're here. And so, if I know the character of our guys is pretty high in the players that we have, and so I'm confident that these guys are not going to be involved in that.
In your opening remarks, you talked about this naming partnership that you guys did with Vi. Can you take the audience through that a little bit, because I think the issues posed by it are super interesting and probably set a precedent for all sports.
Yeah, so that's it is the first. There are some name and title sponsorships across the esports space, but this one's the first one with the betting sponsor, and it's one that we had a partnership with them prior, and we wanted to, escalate. We want to amplify that, and they're a new betting platform, and we were excited to kind of present this opportunity to them. And our CS:GO team went from being known as Dignitas to Dignitas Vi. For Vi.gg, our partner. And so for us, having them associated with our players, CSGO is global, Dignitas is global. And so while maybe there's different restrictions in every state here in the States, but also every country, and working with Ian's team, and really, I think we were on a call for about an hour and a half with Ian's team, just going through, okay, like, here's the different activation elements. Here's like the name and title. Okay, well, some countries may not be able to, have a betting partner with on your jersey or in your name. So you guys need to be prepared to do this. So just really running through a gamut of all the different assets and deliverables we had, content, social. How do we approach social? How do the players talk about it? How does the team talk about it? What do we do in content? How do we activate on Twitch, which is a platform, that you could essentially say adult content only, but we all know how easy it is to click that off, right? So how do our players continue to operate at the highest level of integrity and standards while also delivering incredible value to our partners? And that partnership's about a month in right now. Vi, to their credit, was also working with Ian and his team prior, so we were excited to hear that, and it's been going well. We'll continue to adjust, we'll continue to evaluate, and we just have to learn. I'm a big proponent of key learnings. What worked, what didn't work, and how are we going to move forward in a really solutions-driven way? And you need to be proactive with that, and hence why we talked to Ian. And now we'll see how things move forward and continue to learn from there.
Thank you, Brian. You said to me yesterday that when a mega sponsor like MasterCard thinks about integrity in esports, that quote unquote, it all matters. Tell us a little bit about how you got into esports. I feel like it was a visionary move at the time, and how the company thinks about the scene today.
Great, thanks, John. So for MasterCard, we started evaluating the esports space back in 2015, and we had just seen a rapid change and evolution in the space. And I actually think I met Ian at that time also, and he and I had multiple conversations about integrity in general. And as a professional sports leagues start to become more of a mainstream, how do we as a sponsor think about that and can help that? But for us, really, esports was something new. As a technology company, it's important for us to always try to find what's next, try to think about and see where are consumers looking. And esports in 2015 was starting to build this momentum for us that it was hard to really ignore. So as we started to look into esports, it was incredibly fragmented at that time. And 2015, 2016, even into the beginning of 2017, there was this consolidation. We saw major companies such as Riot Games, Activision Blizzard, starting to take back the rights of their leagues. And for us, as we started to see this change happening, we started to look at, as a global company, what is the right company we would want to partner with? What companies embodies the same values as us, that has the same reach as us, a company that we can partner with and we can bring to our consumers, cardholders, and customers all over the world. And at that time, Riot Games and the game League of Legends seemed to be the right fit for us. So we entered into our partnership. We announced it in 2018. Over the past year and a half, 2 years, we've seen incredible growth. We've seen our own company expand from not just being a global partner, but also going in and sponsoring leagues such as in North America, Brazil, and then forming relationships in China and Taiwan, the Nordics, all over the world. So for us, esports seemed to be the next wave of sports. It was something that we felt as a payments company, the connectivity to the game itself offered a real opportunity for us to connect with the gaming audience, the esports audience, and then I think look at how, as a traditional sports sponsor, how we can take what we think we do so well and bring that to a community of fans that really hadn't seen that. So, it's been a huge success. And then, John, you actually asked to Ian about how kind of the gaming and esports space has been impacted over the last 8 months due to the pandemic. And from a League of Legends perspective, we've seen huge growth. The North American League over the summer season, which they call the summer split, saw 25% viewership growth. The European League the European League finals this past weekend had nearly 1 million concurrent viewers, which they had not had before in the past. So we've seen this huge shift towards gaming and esports and the adoption of esports as a real league. So it'll be really exciting to see what happens over the next, call it, 12 months or so.
Yeah, totally. Vlad, you talked about youth and all the issues involved. In preparing for the panel, I talked to Ariel Horn, who has launched Ben.TV, a new linear channel devoted to esports, and a veteran both of NBC Olympics and also of League of Legends production. And he was talking about just the pressure that is on the kids who play esports today. Incredibly long hours that they're expected to concentrate, the temptations at young age, pressure, who they deal with, the fact that they're impressionable. This all seems to be like a really tough mix that can lead to drug abuse and other problems. How is that the focus at the International Esports Federation?
Thank you for the question. The first thing I'd like to do is comment on this development in CSGO, specifically on the bug that caused the different coaches to cheat. When we were thinking about education, the person who is kind of directing, leading, and mentoring a team is that coach. And I think the fact that a coach is the one cheating for a team is totally unacceptable. So I hope the sanctions that are brought before him set an example to the rest of the community, that the coach is there to educate and lead in the right direction the youth that they're coaching, not to teach them how to cheat and how to play unfair. In essence, to respect the game they're playing. So I look forward to seeing how that comes out as well. And we will also be including, I think, in our educational courses that we've been preparing, not just for athletes, but also to involve coaches there next to referees and other officials that are taking parts in esports events. Now, when we speak about esports as a direction, you mentioned that the gamers are spending hours and hours on this, which for me means a fantastic opportunity to properly educate them and armor them for the realities of the world. Having them and their attention for 8 hours a day is something super unique that I'm sure no other physical sport nor any other activity on the planet Earth can achieve. And I think that if we are able to, and we're doing this actively as IESF, cooperating with different publishers, currently we're establishing the Publishers Commission. The ideology behind it is, how do we work hand in hand with the publishers who have the attention of gamers for so many hours a week to dedicate a little bit of time to plant seeds inside of their foundation that will develop the core abilities, attributes, and behavior into good citizens, to direct them away from drug abuse, to direct them away from too much gaming, no physical movement, bad eating, bad habits, not enough socialization. How do we direct them in that way? And I think that we have a lot of advantages with esports, specifically also the fact that we have influencers, we have gamers that are highly respected and highly followed, who at a click of a button can deliver a message to a loyal group of viewers that will replicate them. Speaking about integrity or just physical health in general, or mental health in this difficult time of the coronavirus, imagine those nice messages being delivered to the target market directly by people that they respect, and the efficiency that those messages would have. I'm happy to tell you that we have the Education Commission of the IESF currently developing with various universities around the world, from the United States to the UK to Turkey to Japan, a educational course that touches upon all of the foundations and building blocks. The concept and the direction is that we want kids to game responsibly. And by achieving that, by instilling integrity principles in them and other principles and habits which traditional sports instill in children or in youth while they're practicing those sports, I think that we can gain the friendly support and the following of also the parents to support the gaming activity that their kids are doing. The entire ecosystem is linked. Every single sector, every single stakeholder in this ecosystem has something to gain by another stakeholder doing something good. And I think that together in this esports ecosystem, respecting each other, if we understand that our direction and our target is the well-being of the children, the well-being of the gamers, we can do some great things to ensure that they will be playing and enjoying to play, and some reaching the professional level for the years to come.
Thank you, Vlad. So gaming is notorious for sexism and toxic culture towards women. One of the really refreshing parts of the development of Fortnite was the amount of women who were playing and the sort of co-ed nature of the game. Chris, you guys are actually fielding an all-women's Valorant team. Seems like a really big development and great timing in our industry.
Yeah, so our all-women's team on the Valorant side is actually originated as a all-women's CSGO team. And they actually multi-time world champions in CS, and now are the only team that are competing in 2 games simultaneously. I'm really excited about that. And I think, that just goes to show that there are opportunities out there. Our _fee platform, which is what the team plays under now, is made up of this team, but as well as content creators. And I think we'll continue to grow. I think it's a really important time. As you mentioned, there's a lot of toxicity, and just, I think that sometimes the space hasn't matured or evolved enough to recognize opportunities for all. And I think it goes beyond, for us, it goes beyond, _FIA. It goes, it goes towards Black Lives Matter and what what we're doing around that space and the statements we've made. It goes around the LGBTQ plus community. It goes around just gaming. Everyone games. Everyone's a gamer. Gaming has no walls, sexual orientation, gender. Everybody games. I think that's really important for us. And the women's platform is really something that's really near and dear to our heart. It's the project of Heather Garazzo. She goes by Sapphire. She's the only woman in the Esports Hall of Fame. She's a rock star in the space. She's a legendary player in CS, also one of the best observers in Valorant and CS:GO. And this is a project I'm really excited to continue to support Heather on, and the entire org is. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we have a Discord channel set up, where we really encourage people to come in, women. It's a resource. It's a safe place. It's an opportunity to engage with others, in the space, whether it's our pro players like Emily or Thea on the women's Valorant or CS:GO team, or our content creators like Hercules. There's just an opportunity to create a conversation and dialogue that will undoubtedly better this space and continue to grow this industry.
And Brian, I would think that MasterCard would welcome a development like this, right? Getting more women involved in esports. You're muted, Brian.
There you go. Zoom 101, unmute. So yes, John, absolutely. We are constantly talking to all of our partners about how we can support everyone. I think as Chris said so well, video gaming has no boundaries, whether it's race, sexual orientation, where you're from, what you look like. It all matters to us. And as a company, we look at our partners to uphold the same integrity, the same values we do, and it's something that we hold all of our partners to the highest standards on.
So we have a bunch of questions coming into WhatsApp for you guys. One, and this probably goes to Ian and Vlad. Noting that many traditional sports agents are trying to get involved and invest in the growing market of esports, how prepared is esports to regulate agents and potentially nefarious activities? That's an adjective from the viewer, not from me. And that comes from Jonathan Booker, who is at Chiron Sports and Media.
Well, I'll pick this up, John, because...
Ian, sorry, before you jump on it, let me answer the one before real quick, just 1 minute. Because I think it's super important before you pick that one up and take care of it, as I know you will perfectly. I just want to answer the one right before about gender equity and women's involvement in esports, because it's vitally important to me. It's an important topic. Esports is the only sporting activity that does not affect you with your physical height, weight, age, gender, any type of physical birth genetics that you have. Anybody can play esports on a level playing field, whether it be a man or a woman. It's not like putting LeBron James to play basketball against a girl in high school. In esports, if they played on PlayStation the same game, she probably would have a lot higher chance to beat him than in real life. So I think that the imbalance that we see between men and women in professional esports must be created or generated by something else. And I think this discrimination is definitely one of the issues that, women are afraid to be women online because of negative comments or rudeness or hazing or bullying online. And I think that the way that we can achieve very quickly a solution to this issue is purely the identification of people who play. So it's not any more screen names and anonymous people, but rather real people, as Facebook made the move from online IDs and online screen names to using your own name and having your real personality online. I'm sure that by having a slow, of course, steady, safe process of identifying gamers that are playing to who they really are, immediately they'll think twice before they make negative hazing and bullying comments online. Ian, to you.
Thanks, Vlad. Yeah, I agree. It's a phenomenally important topic and probably worthy of an entire seminar on its own. But what it's definitely worthy of is a lot more research into understanding why these things happen. Because to simplify it, as I would, for example, to the toxicity being the product of the lowest common denominator of every ratty little 14-year-old boy in the world. it's the impact of that behavior on everyone. Because they will pick on what they perceive to be the weakness of somebody, whether it's gender, appearance, hair color, foot size, nose size, language, accent, you name it, we see it. And the industry definitely needs to come together and deal with that. And we need to deal with it at the higher level of genuine abuse and harassment that has come forward in gaming's own Me Too period over this last 3 or 4 month period, where streamers and other industry people have come forward with tales of horrendous abuse, and that needs to be addressed, and we're looking very, very closely at it. And but to move on, the sorry, John, can you?
It was a question about agents.
Sorry.
It was a question
about the agent question.
About
the agent.
It was a question about preparedness.
Very, very
for
simply.
agents.
I'm sorry, I completely lost track in my excitement about.
Sorry, Ian. My apologies.
No, that's fine. Yes, so we have had for the last about 3 months an existing consultative committee of existing esports agents, but primarily from the large agencies that deal with multi-sport agencies that have come in. We are literally on the brink of publishing a voluntary code of conduct for agents, where they will agree to abide by a code of conduct so that members or signatories to that code can advertise themselves as signatories, because they are committing to behave in a certain ethical way towards their clients and towards the industry. So we are very, very close to being able to say that there are accredited agents within the esports space, because my background in traditional sport, I know very, very well how abusive agents can be if they're allowed to get away with it. Generally, they provide, of course, a very vital service to their clients, but sometimes that goes too far. And so we are very conscious of trying to stop that before it happens in the esports industry, because it can get completely out of hand. And yes, it's something we're completely, I believe we're completely on top of it. We'll be able to put something out publicly within a matter of weeks now. It's looking very good, and it's being done in cooperation with the agents rather than us as a governing body, regulator, bigwig thing, or federation, which we're not. We're a regulator. We're putting an integrity brand on this. We are not a governing body. And so we want to do it in cooperation with the stakeholders rather than as the person wielding a big stick.
It's great. Well, I just wanted you to know that Jonathan, who asked the question, texted that a sports regulator, i.e. ESIC, recognizing a problem and addressing it should be applauded, as some organizations may try to conceal it or sweep it under the carpet. I agree. One of the really remarkable things about esports is just the international, global nature of competition. And we have two questions that aren't identical, but they're kind of similar, and they come from developing nations. So, how do esport organizations recruit and develop talent from emerging nations like the Philippines, where esport is not yet developed and organized, yet so many youth here are into esports? And there's another one, that one came from Ruby Ann Kagoyan, and there's another one from Dalton Myers, who's one of our speakers at this program. He says, how viable do you think esport is in a small island such as those in the Caribbean? So I was wondering, Vlad, maybe if you could take a stab at how esports reaches out into the developing world.
Thank you. So the Caribbean is a very interesting territory because it's a lot of small nations very closely together with slow internet connection speed, high latency when they compete in international competitions, but they are very motivated. And of course, the children and the youth have more disposable time at their steadiness than in other territories. I think that one thing that's unique about esports compared to traditional sports, when you talk about recruiting and identifying talent, in traditional sports, you don't have the infrastructure to identify in the Philippines someone who's playing American football in middle school better than any other middle schooler in the United States because the infrastructure doesn't exist. Esports is so global and will continue to be more global without borders just because anybody in any country playing games will be ranked and their results, even with high latency, will be seen. So I can really see in the future the entire process of agents and the recruiting of esports talent becoming very mechanical and very AI oriented, in the essence that people become recruited even automatically and receive their automatic contract to work for a certain company or to join a certain team. But definitely, I think that this will develop on its own. It's not about people trying to develop sport. And esports is one of the only international federations, the ISF, that doesn't have as a primary target to attract more people to practice the sport. It's our job and our endeavor to help kids game responsibly and to educate them and give them that safe gaming environment.
It's great. Here's a question, I think, for Ian. Would you consider safeguarding of players, maybe for Vlad too, would you consider safeguarding of players to be another area which could serve as an additional threat in esports? Does it have the visibility and attention it needs? And this is asked by Jackie Trainer, who's anti-doping and integrity officer for British Rowing. Safeguarding of players.
Yeah, John and Jackie, it's absolutely essential to develop this within the broader esports and gaming industry, because there is nowhere for these guys to go. If you look at the history of, and I know that this is prominent now, but the scandal introduced by the Larry Nassar scandal and the response to this by the establishment of Safe Sport US, although we are not public on this, I am prepared to say that we are working very closely with the former chief executive of Safe Sport to put together for the industry a proposal for a safeguarding body to cover this exact issue, because we are seeing, I think there are two very important elements to this. The first is the very pressing problem of the Me Too sexual harassment, sexual abuse allegations that have been made within the industry that affect not so much esports professionals and players and coaches even, but streamers and influencers within the industry. And that has to be addressed because it's very, very difficult for the platforms that they use, and let's say Twitch, YouTube, and others, to do anything, because they don't have any power to do anything other than, say, take away somebody's platform. And that's a difficult decision to make because it's a trade-based decision that has implications for loss of ability to earn a living and so on. And so we're very close to presenting to various elements of the esports and games and streaming industry a potential solution for that. But let's not delude ourselves. This is an expensive thing to do. And I think that it's should be allied, and we are allying it in our proposal to far better mental health provision for streamers and professional gamers, because you mentioned earlier the stress and difficulty of this is something that's really, really hard to imagine and hard to do something about. And there needs to be somewhere for these guys to go, professional gamers, because you talk about people playing 8 hours a day. Top-end professionals in Tier 1 esports are probably playing, I don't know, Chris, you'd know better than me, but 5, 6, 7 hours a day, plus other obligations of the professional athlete, media, nutrition, physical training, education, and normal life, right? Just having a life. And the stress of the current period in particular has been very, very high. So we believe that we ought to, I think we have a duty to try and create some kind of central provision that is safeguarding as well as a mental health initiative that provides somewhere for people to go for counseling, help, guidance in areas where they may not wish to come to their team. Because my experience in traditional sport was that there's a lot of pressure to make the team, to perform. And what you might not want to do is go to the coach, manager, chief exec and say, hey, I'm feeling terrible, I'm feeling suicidal, I'm feeling depressed. because it'll affect your career. And what we want to give is somewhere for these guys to go, backed by the teams, backed by the orgs, backed by the TOs, the publishers, the streaming platforms, but not directly linked to them, so people can get help without jeopardizing their employment and their ability to earn a living. And I think it's super important.
One thing I'd like to I think Ian brings up a really good point around mental health and players and streamers, and given the hours and the stress they're under, especially now during this time, amongst multiple reasons. But I think this is something that we really try to tackle head on at Dignitas, offering up mental services, health services. I think this is super important. It's important to our partners at Verizon in terms of the resources and tools that they've armed us with and the facility they built for us out in Los Angeles. So even to our staff, our director of partnerships, John Spire, is a member of Rise Against the Disorder, which goes by RAD, and he's even been really integral in bringing in a lot of mental health professionals to support our players during this time. So I think this is something that if you're not proactively working with your players on, to Ian's point, some of them may be maybe not as open to going that route internally with the team for different reasons. But I think for us, we've tried to create an open conversation to let our players know we've got their back, and they're here and they're part of our family. And if they're part of our family, we're going to make sure they're taken care of. And I think that's really helped us attract some really top tier players, and we continue to support them in whatever they need, whether it's mental health, physical. I think we do a lot more than a lot of the other teams out there to encourage and support the talent on our team.
So that's the final word. We got it from Chris. I'd like to thank Chris, Ian, Vlad, and Brian for a great conversation. I'd like to thank those in the audience for some terrific questions. Very engaging discussion of all these topics in a growing sport. And as we sign off here, we are also going to offer you a video for any who'd like to get even more information about esports. Thank you. Have a terrific day and enjoy the rest of this conference.
It may come as a surprise to you, but these days, video games are bigger than film or music. Apart from just playing games, consumers are spending hundreds of millions of hours watching other people play video games through videos, live streams, and on TV. You may not have heard of esports before, but big brands like Coke, Vodafone, and Gillette are already reaping big rewards by supporting it. You'd better be ready, because like it or not, esports are the next evolution of sporting entertainment. So what does esports mean, and why are the kids going crazy about it? Short for electronic sports, esports refers to video games that can be played competitively, either alone or as a team. Competing in video games has existed for as long as the games themselves, going as far back as Pong, Space Invaders, and Donkey Kong. Arcades became places where heroes could be made, with people breaking records and becoming local celebrities. When PC and console gaming became more popular and online play became a thing, a new era of international competition was born. Being the best in the world didn't mean much at the time, but now it's an entirely different story. The video games your kids are playing nowadays can make them literal millionaires. There are many games that are considered esports and have tournaments, prizes, and plenty of chances for people to compete. Companies like StarLadder make some of these tournaments into grand spectacles, filling up stadiums full of hungry, excited fans. As a game developer, curating a competitive community and adding certain features to facilitate competitive play could boost revenues as well as the lifespan of your product. Let's have a look at some of the top games right now. One of the most well-known games is League of Legends, often called LOL. Released in 2009, the game revolves around a fantasy world, with two teams vying to destroy each other's base with magic, monsters, and everything in between. Sounds nerdy enough, right? In 2017, the World Championship for League of Legends peaked at 106 million viewers and gave almost $4.6 million in prize money. For these professional gamers, their job is to train, travel, and compete. They're sponsored by big brands, appearing in endorsements that can support them in between competitions. The latest estimate is that over 81 million people play League of Legends in an average month. A similar game to League of Legends is called Dota 2, which is short for Defense of the Ancients. Also in 2017, Dota's largest annual tournament at the Key Arena in Seattle paid out just under $25 million. With another month to go, this year's edition has already raised over $21.5 million. What might even be more surprising is that the vast majority of this money is crowdfunded, with only 25% of purchases of in-game items contributing to the prize pool. As to how much the company itself made, you do the math. This competition was streamed across the internet, as well as being aired on various ESPN channels. Other genres of games are also popular as well. A recent example is Overwatch, a team-based shooter that has gotten much traction, also going as far as creating its own league system, similar to the NBA, with teams hailing from around the world. Like physical sports, these teams have staffs or trainers and scheduling coordinators. They're also owned like sports teams, some with very notable owners including professional athletes like Shaquille O'Neal, Magic Johnson, Rick Fox and Alex Rodriguez, who all own or co-own their own dedicated esports teams and brands. Since this can be a lucrative career, many young people are opting to pursue esports. They likely start playing young, and they might even choose universities that have prestigious esports programs or teams. It's becoming more and more common for universities to treat these competitors as athletes, meaning there are significant scholarships for these athletes to attend a given university, knowing that a successful team can boost that university's prestige at an international level. Also, like professional athletes, injuries can be devastating. A wrist injury could ruin your career at just 20 years old. A case of carpal tunnel could cost you millions. Certain surgeons are now specializing in working specifically with esports athletes. As well as physical, the injuries can also be mental, with players buckling under the pressure of competition, the media and fans. Becoming a professional gamer takes time, dedication, study, keeping fit and eating well. So, in a nutshell, esports is not going anywhere. It's a billion-dollar industry and one that you'll likely see more and more of once it starts getting more mainstream coverage.